everyone. Thank you. My name is John Stringer, the host of the Alignment Podcast, and I am thrilled today to bring you a dear friend of mine who has been a critical part of my wellness journey, in fact. But we knew each other at West Point Military Academy long time ago and reconnected, and I'm so grateful he stayed on me, stayed in touch. And I finally tuned in and prayed and heard to check out what he has to offer. So I'm excited to bring him to you. He is none other than Nate Scott, the amazing author of Life is Rich, How to Create Lasting Wealth, and Life is Rich Global LLC. So thank you, Nate, for joining me. Glad to have you here and introduce you to the public. To start right off the bat, tell everybody a little bit about who you are and how you see yourself.
Well, John, first, man, so great to reconnect with you. And I'm glad that I got a chance to hear about your podcast. And ironically, a message that I provide, I say alignment before assignment, alignment before assignment. And so I'm from a small town outside of Savannah, Georgia. I live in Jacksonville, Florida now, but back in the day, I grew up in the South with the desire of playing college basketball, left when my basketball scholarship fell through, enlisted in the Army. And from that experience in the Army, I continued to play sports, enrolled in college courses. And as a result of that activity, one of my professors, her husband was a West Pointer. She knew my company commander, and they approached me about the idea of going to West Point. And so around that same time, I got a knock on the door from my first sergeant telling me that we were going to be deployed to serve in Operation Desert Shield. And so I found myself in the desert at 19, walking perimeter during Operation Desert Storm, when I said, Lord, if you allow me to make it back, I'll never waste a day of my life. And that was a defining moment for me. And so when I share who I am, that really was the start of really who I am, because it was in that moment that I had a clear path of what the rest of my life would look like. And that life would be a life of service, to live in fullness every day, because I realize I am Christ's heir. That's the backstory to how Life is Rich Global came about. It was rooted in that experience. And each and every day I wake up, that's the thing that drives me. It's to ensure that if life was cut short, that I had done all that I could do to be impactful and to be a representative of the Most High. And so that's a quick abbreviated version of
Love it, brother.
what I am about.
Yeah, and I see you as a God soldier. You know what I'm saying? So I appreciated the way you really stayed in touch with me and followed up with me, followed through, so I could see just in your approach with me, the discipline to stay in touch, even when I was kind of like, I really didn't have it on my radar to fully connect and ask, hey, is this something I should check out? And when I finally did, I'm like, oh, thank God I was listening, to find out, and took that time. But I want to talk about leadership specifically when it comes to kind of the coaching. Like I see you put these things into practice that I'm familiar with and practice as well, some of which, and I'm also learning from you some things. So I want to talk about leadership and how that plays a part in your life and the things you offer.
Well, ironically, chapter 1 of Life is Rich, How to Create Lasting Wealth is leadership is the answer. And Life is Rich, How to Create Lasting Wealth is a principle-centered, biblically based leadership program focused on personal growth and entrepreneurship. Every chapter begins with scripture, but then I say, so what? How do you take God's word and apply it on a daily basis? I address the cash flow danger that no one is talking about. The fact that 77 million baby boomers are retiring and facing a cash flow danger, that 66 out of 100 people age 65 earn less than $30,000 of retirement, that 47% of people say if they had a $400 emergency, they'd have to sell something or borrow money to address it, and 68% of people are living paycheck to paycheck. But John, it's about how to think versus what to think. How to think versus what to think. And with every chapter beginning with scripture, it's me saying, so what? You know God's word, but how do you take it and apply it on a daily basis? So leadership is the beginning and end of everything. And so chapter 1, leadership is the answer. It really speaks to me saying that that's the beginning of everything. You got to first know to lead yourself. And from that foundation, then that which you live out, that which you walk out, that example that you set, then gives you the credibility and gives you the right to be able to lead. You know, one interesting story is the way that my wife and I met and how that relationship began was July 8th, 2015. I was leaving LA Fitness. I passed a pink Cadillac. I didn't see the person driving the vehicle, but I saw it as a status symbol. So I pulled on the side of the road. She drove by, I flagged it down. I gave her a copy of my book. I said, read this. If you get any value from it, you can pay for it later. Well, she went left, I went right. She contacted me on July 26th, telling me she'd read it. She shared it with 30 of her directors and they all wanted it. From there, she asked to do a conference call with about 200 of her ladies. I said, bring the husbands on. After that, she asked them to do a live event. And then she paid $4,500 to work me for 90 days as her coach. Well, less than a year meeting at the stop sign, we married. I shared that because leadership, many times in the dating process, people end up experiencing people in one way, but then lo and behold, they get married and then they don't see that same person. And therein lies where a lot of times relationships have issues.
Yep.
Well, the thing that's really special about my wife and I is that it was rooted in respect, mutual respect. I respected who she was professionally based on what I expected, based on what I saw. And then she respected me enough to hire me to help her with what she was, what she was working on. And so that leadership element of leading by example, being able to be married and then seeing that I'm the same person with her in the house, that leads to a lot of confidence. And I say it's a lot of confidence that is that people garner when they go back and look over my life to see consistency. And at some point in time, when I say the bullets start to fly, when things really are needed, you need to have you need to be able to have something that you can hold on substantially that in turn can give you the confidence that, okay, I now need to get that particular person in my life when it really does matter. And so leadership is everything, and it begins with oneself.
And speaking of leadership, I know you lead a beautiful family. Seeing the pictures. And how long have y'all been together? And talk about how many kids you got together.
Well, we've been married now 95 months, 96 months will be July 2nd.
Nice.
And the blessing is that this is not my first marriage. The blessing in experiencing what Andrew and I have is that we're best friends. And so my children are now 18 and 19 and moving on 19 and 20. My son just graduated from high school on the 31st. We just now came from a road trip of watching him graduate. And then we went up to West Point and experienced that for Andrew to see that for the first time. And then we celebrated her 40th class reunion in New York. Beautiful. So we got a close-knit family. The kids are great. Andrew's really close with her mom and her brother. And that's just our unit.
Love it, man. And so I know we talked about this a little bit, that you had some interesting experiences and you actually help people when it comes to transitions in their careers, lives, etc. Talk about, one, what qualifies you for that, and two, how you help them.
Yeah, my coaching is focused on helping people to navigate life disruptions. And the way this came about was, when I transitioned initially, the first disruption in my life was transitioning from the military to be a civilian. That was a transition, and that was a disruption identified by a change in a routine. And so I successfully made that transition. And the example of the success was that I knew I had a window of time of 90 days of terminal leave. And I had already in my mind set that I wanted to pursue financial freedom. And I boiled it down to business and real estate.
And for those that don't know what terminal leave is, can you describe that?
It's just that window of time in which the Army or the military gives you to transition from the military.
Got
So
it.
you got your due out date and then you got your starting point. And
Perfect.
so knowing that you're going to be terminal at a particular date, and that
Got it.
terminal date for me was June 1st.
Got
And
it.
so I had that window of time that I knew that if I didn't take action before leaving the military, then I would not qualify based upon having a history of income, which was one of those requirements back when I was buying real estate 2001 or so. That was a requirement. And so I read a couple of books. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad and Cash Flow Quadrant, pulled a couple of concepts from those readings that changed my life because they were so simple to me as I read them. The first was understanding the flow of income difference between the poor, the middle class, and the wealthy. And the other were the four quadrants in which income was earned.
Hmm.
I read those, took those concepts, applied them, and in a 90-day window, acquired over $1 million in assets in that 90-day time frame that laid the foundation for my first million at 32. That transition and being able to walk through those steps enables me to have the foresight and the insight to help people who might be also transitioning into a new career and may not know how to navigate that change. The next thing that was a disruption in my life was being married and really excited about the future. And then as I transitioned from the military, within a 6-month time frame, my wife, who we had not lived together, she was working on her PhD at the University of Georgia. I was in DC and the old guard at Arlington National Cemetery, transitioning because I was looking forward to being together. Well, lo and behold, soon thereafter, her moving up, she said she was miserable and needed to find herself. And John, that ripped my heart out.
Mm.
So that experience right there of the disruption of a relationship, people don't plan for divorce. And
Right.
lo and behold, it happens. And so the question is, well, how do you navigate that? And so I'm able to share my success story in that was because in that time frame when I was heartbroken and hoping that we would actually come together, I threw myself into my business endeavors. And consequently, that's the time frame when I had my greatest success.
Mm.
And through that experience, I also learned that I had the capacity to love. Because when that time frame of required separation ended, I filed for the divorce, and I did so saying that I love you enough to let you go. And so that real world experience honors me to be able to help people who may be experiencing that type of disruption. And then the other major disruption that I went through was the disruption that followed me being the CFO of an Inc. 500 fast growing company. You see, John, when I had my first child, my daughter Nadia, which was always my plan, I in turn ran my numbers and saw financially I was in a position to make that transition from the DC metro area, sight unseen, to move to Jacksonville, Florida, to be near the water. I did so because I was financially in a position to do that so that I could be the dad that was around. Well, success was being had in my career as a financial advisor. I left there to become CFO of an Inc. 500 fast growing company. We did that 2 years in a row. Then 90 days after the second time of achieving that recognition, we shut our doors.
Mm.
Here we are, an Inc. 500 fastest growing company, 2 years in a row. And then like this, we end up shutting our doors.
Mm.
In that same experience, people that were living in my 40-unit apartment complex started losing their job. That in turn caused that expense to come back to me.
Right.
And I found myself carrying that. I did it year one, I carried it year two, and year three is when I had to make a decision. And consequently, I made that decision that I needed to stop throwing good money after bad money. And as a result of that experience, found myself going from 5 million to zero, from a 6,000 square foot home to a 10 by 12 room. And it was in that valley experience that I really learned about my true character. And it caused me to write the book, Life is Rich, How to Create Lasting Wealth. And I wrote that book to tell people what the bankers and brokers don't tell them. You see, God had uniquely positioned me to be in a position where I had experienced a high degree of success financially, and then went down to see really how did I change. And I learned in that experience that I didn't change because I was never defined by my stuff. And so that experience arms me in a very unique way for a unique crowd of people that have experienced great success, but then lost, but don't have enough people that can relate to that which they've gone through. And so, John, chapter 3 of my book is titled Nearly Bankrupt and Homeless. Well, when people read that chapter, that's when they really start to call me, because what I learned is that it's through that experience that in turn, that openness has caused people to really seek me out, because they know that I'm not just speaking from a place of up here. I'm speaking from being in a place where many people have been, that valley experience, and just are stuck. And so it's that experience based on me leading people through combat and being able to say, I can help you to navigate these grounds just as I did with soldiers.
Follow me.
Follow me.
There you go. No, that's beautiful, man. So one of the things that I can relate to, having hit rock bottom and climbing back up, I think a lot of people can relate, and that resonates, especially during COVID, for the entrepreneurs who's they might be participating in the gig economy or what have you. A lot of us saw big shifts during that time. And one lesson, I want to know what you have heard when it comes to your relationship with the Most High. Like, why do you think we go through those things?
Bro, that's counted all joy. See, I fall back always on Romans 8:28. I'm always saying it's for my good. I know that the call he has on my life, those things that I go through, I say I get to go through them because of what he's given me as the mantle to move forward with. And see, what's exciting about it, and I really appreciate that question, is that I trust him and I trust me because I've been through. You know, I'm an infantry officer and a ranger. I've done hard things. I've been tested. And so those different tests that I've gone through have all put me in a position such that it arms me with the ability to really lead people and not be flustered or up and down or unsure about what's going on.
Yeah.
It's a character test.
Yeah.
So it's easy for me when I'm going through those experiences because I'm not questioning what God has already promised. And that's why the foundational message of Life is Rich is Matthew 6:33, which says, seek ye first the kingdom of God and all of its righteousness. Those are instructions. And then there's the promise that all these things thereafter shall be added unto you. Well, I'm confident that everything is meant for my good and that there's a lesson in everything that's meant to develop me for the assignment that he has for me.
Love it. Love it, brother. And so the thing that I think life is good at is giving us those opportunities to test and see where we're at, kind of like a litmus test to check our faith and see exactly where it is. And we get chance time after time to grow. Like a lot of people, you know, maybe listen to this and thinking like, man, I'm not there yet, or I'm, I don't see it that way yet. I mean, a lot of people like that. And
Absolutely.
the way I look at it is you're in the perfect spot. You're in the perfect place, exactly where you're supposed to be for your growth. Don't compare it to Brother Nate. You don't compare your faith that way, but realize that your life experience is giving you exactly what you need to get there. You just got to do the work. So let's talk about the work.
That's right. That's what I was
Yeah.
going to say.
Perfect. So let's talk about the work. So for you, for those people who are stuck, who are wanting to get there, what does the work look like to you?
Well, the shortcut to the work is recognizing that God has put the gifts and talents in people in the body. And so the thing is that be open and receptive to the Spirit to get the help that you need, to get the guidance that you need.
Yeah.
I'm clear about my assignment, and it's to get the believer to believe. My message of life is rich is meant to remind everyone that's a believer that you're an heir. And if you believe that you're an heir, then you've got to know that your father has it all. And if your father has it all, you've got to also know that it's set aside for you. But no good parent's going to release the keys to the car if you can't drive. So therefore, you must commit to growing your capacity. And you don't do that in a silo. So for me, as a business coach, as an executive coach, I help growth-minded professionals, believers, to navigate those life disruptions, to be affirming and to reiterate and to remind one of the word, and then to provide that practical application to say the work that you still must do. And see, this wasn't something that I grew up with. My life shifted in this particular manner in 1996, the week I graduated from West Point, when I got introduced to the world of personal growth and development and entrepreneurship via network marketing. I wasn't drawn into a financial opportunity. The thing that I was drawn into was picking up books and going to seminars and being around successful people. I never knew that that was even available. But consequently, through that experience, I learned to read the Bible as a practical manual, because what I saw was, as I was reading these growth books, I was seeing the things that I had already known through scripture. And so my desire for all people in the kingdom is to commit to that true renewing of the mind, to start to be learners, to engage, to develop, to grow, because it's all there for us. You got the non-believers that can take advantage of all these things, and then you wonder, well, why they can have the success? Well, because principles are principles. They're going to apply for anyone that applies them. And so I'm on a mission, John, to take this message forward, to invite like-minded people to connect, and then to provide that safe place, that environment where we're talking like this, and then we're providing that encouragement and that support and that accountability. Because again, we can't be punks. We got to get out here and actually go and put in the work, and then we got to actually hold each other to the standard of saying, don't forget, you got to know you got to make sure you know your identity. You got to identify as that heir, and then you got to act like an heir would act.
Right on. So I love what you said about accountability specifically. The importance of that has changed my life in significant ways for the last 4 years, actually. I've had consistent accountability in many forms. Talk about how you use accountability and how that plays a part in your life.
Yeah, accountability for me begins again. Fortunately, I've had enough practice at discipline, but whenever I'm doing something significant and I need to just focus on just the doing, I then will get the accountability partner. And normally when I'm investing in that relationship, because, I find that when money is put towards something, time put towards something, then it means a much more. The value is actually there. Free just don't work. And, but I'll tell you about discipline and accountability. Coming into 2024, I said that this was a year of freedom, time, money, relationships, purpose. And I said the path to getting to that freedom was discipline and consistency. So I committed to waking up at 4 a.m. every day for 2024 and I committed to the goal of rowing 1,000,000 meters on the Concept 2 rower in 2024. So when the year began, day one, I got up at 4 a.m. I rowed 10,000 meters. I posted that I did what I said I would do. In other words, I said I was going to wake up at 4 a.m. I did it. I said I was going to row. I did it. I said I was going to do, I said I go, and I did it. And through doing that, day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, each and every day that I did that, I in turn trusted my word. You see, one of the things, the reason that many times we don't engage with people is because we don't trust our own self. And so therefore we hesitant because we can't ask people to trust us when we don't even trust ourselves. And so that is where confidence comes in. You know, crazy thing about it is that people think that confidence comes as a result first, and then you do the stuff. No, confidence comes as a result of the doing. When you do it, then you're confident. And then you do it again, then you're confident. And that's how confidence is actually developed.
Exactly.
But then after that, those morning check-ins were my accountability publicly. And John, after 125 consecutive days of waking up 4 a.m., rowing 10,000 meters per day, not because I planned it, but I just didn't stop because momentum was there. I found myself at 125 days, 1,250,000 meters when I set a goal of rowing 1,000,000 meters over the entire year. And so that's the impact of accountability.
I love that. And that reminds me, because there's different types of accountability. A lot of us have personal accountability, like we will be personally hold ourselves accountable because we have practiced, we have done, and we value our word and value our commitments through that practice, right? Then when it gets harder, because sometimes we're called to expand, right? Like I know some of the listeners may be familiar with, as you become more, let's just call it obedient to or surrender to this higher calling for your lives, what you find is you get expanded and you start transforming and you start letting go of some of the old things you used to do, some of the old limitations or whatever. Next thing you know, you're being called to something that's way out of your comfort zone. And that might take a different level of accountability. So that, to me, that second level of accountability is accountability with another person or accountability with the public, just like you said, right? I love those tools in and of themselves. They've helped me out a lot. I love what you just described, how you used it. I think that's a bold way to get on and declare to the public, I'm going to do this, and then show up and get it done. That's how you do it, man. So I love that. So one of the things you've mentioned, the book itself, Life is Rich, to get the whole title, How to Create Lasting Wealth. I know you had a offer for people. Is that something we can offer here as well, or where they can find the book, or whatever you want to let them know about it? Because I know listeners will be intrigued to check that out.
Yeah, the first thing is I say thank you for that opportunity. I would say for everyone listening, skip Amazon. Please skip Amazon. And the reason I say skip Amazon is because I don't know who the buyer is when you buy it through Amazon. And so therefore, I'm not able to give you any of the other goodies that I have set aside. So go to www.lifeisrichglobal.com/book. lifeisrichglobal.com/book. And from there, you'll be able to not only be able to buy Life is Rich, How to Create Lasting Wealth, but you can also buy a bundle where I include Pillars of Success. And Pillars of Success is a book that I wrote in conjunction with Jim Rohn, Pat Summitt, Jenna Alexander Haig Jr. And so I've got a special bundle pricing for both of those. And in addition to that, once I see that come through, I'll also send you the audio for Life is Rich, How to Create Lasting Wealth. And then you also have direct access to me as a follow-up to maybe get some of your questions answered. So lifeisrichglobal.com/book is the location for getting that. And I think each one of you should definitely absolutely get it because, as I said, it's uniquely written because I not only have the academic background and professional background, but also an entrepreneur. And what I say that's different than anyone else out there is that entrepreneurship must be the foundation of any wealth building plan. This is important to understand because I wrote this book and I said at one time that most people don't have enough to fund their plan. I said, the good news is if you're reading this now, you got 10 years to do something. The bad news is that most people will wait too long. Well, that time in which I said that, it was 2013, 10 years is 2023. Well, we know what life has been like 2023 and what 2024 is. So I encourage everyone to get it because it's a practical tool that you can use to help you to assess where you're currently at, as well as guide you as you're engaging with your professionals. Because I cover leadership is the answer, the cash flow danger, it happened to me, become an entrepreneur, choosing the right entity, raising capital, asset protection, protecting your financial privacy, reducing your taxes, retirement planning, residual income retirement planning, estate planning, and life is rich. I think you're pleased.
Beautiful. That sounds outstanding. So the last thing I want to talk about is what brought us together, but the carrot that was used rather, because I know the way I call the I am is the divine. So I know the divine brought us together. However, the carrot that was used was wellness. And I'm going to tell you a little something about me. I don't know if we talked about this or not, but my entrance letter or essay to get into West Point was finding balance in mind, body, spirit. And I wanted to go to West Point because I felt like physically, body, I had a check there. I was doing really good. Mentally, I felt like I needed some help, discipline in mind. And in spirit, I was coming from a private Christian school. I felt like kind of had that together. But the mental game, I felt like West Point was the place, right? Fast forward to now and my growing age, my spiritual life, I'm grateful for. My physical life, I've been doing my best, but I've had some things I've run up into, and we've been looking for ways to best support it. So when you reached out to me, honestly, I don't even know how to say it, but like we've been so dedicated. We've been like searching all over, spending time and energy to find products that don't have toxins in them. Like that's how serious we are. I'm talking about for years we've been doing this, like traveling and trying to find the right deodorant. And my wife only used this one and all kinds of stuff. So we've been dedicated over the last 4 years since COVID. We really took it up another notch. So really, you were almost like a answer to an unspoken prayer when you came along with what you introduced me to, and now it's really been a blessing. I appreciate it. I thank you for that. But how did you end up in this whole wellness arena? Like, what brought you there?
My first business was as a personal trainer. So I've been an athlete my entire life. So, but my first business was as a personal trainer. I then started teaching people how to apply the habits of physical fitness to their life. I then did my MBA at George Washington University, started teaching people how to apply the habits of physical fitness to business. I then did financial planning at Georgetown University and started teaching people how to apply the habits of physical fitness to personal finance. So the process that I go through and everything since 2000 is there's a goal that people would have. And then I would do an initial assessment, and then I'd lay out a plan, and then hold people accountable to the execution of the plan. And so my whole life has been one based upon helping people to create a transformation. It's the beginning, you're here now versus where you want to be. Well,
Bro, that's the secret. Yeah. Yeah.
So I found myself 8 years ago, 2015, August, I was speaking at an event about life is rich, how to create lasting wealth. And I heard a presentation about a company that I'd known of for over 20 years, but I never looked at the company. Although I knew the products were great, I didn't look at it because of how people approached me. You see, the way that people approached me gave me the impression as if it were a multi-level marketing company or direct sales company. And though I don't have an issue with the business models because I actually understand them from an entrepreneurial standpoint from the corporate side, it wasn't what I was interested in, because I evaluate things based upon if I don't recruit other people. So if I don't have to get other people in, can I actually still make my money? In other words, are there legitimate products and services that are being offered to the market where a real buyer would be really buying? Well, I saw and heard the presentation in August 2015, and I actually heard it, and I immediately said, I think this would fit my program. So you see, I was already teaching people that finances are 80% behavior, 20% know-how. 80% behavior, 20% know-how. So I said, if I got people to shop online, then that means you're looking at your expenses. And if you're looking at your expenses, you're able to track your expenses. And tracking is the first step to creating a budget. So I opened up the account in order to validate the pricing, the shipping costs, the quality of the products, and the customer service of the company. Because I knew that if I could validate those 4 components, then I'd have a great tool to show people how to implement the strategies in which I teach in my book. So the whole wellness piece came about because my lifestyle is wellness. I've always been focused on looking good, feeling good, living good. And when I saw that I could actually not only do something that could allow me and my family to continue to live that way, when I validate the pricing and quality and understood the company's model, then I saw a way that I could help more people, because I don't want people just reading my book and then having to go figure out what to do. So that's really where the big focus was on, is saying that, Miles Monroe says that knowledge is information, understanding is comprehension, but wisdom is applied knowledge. And I find that most people struggle and miss out on things because they don't know what to do after they've gotten the information. And that's really where I excel, is being able to show the practical application of the information, as exemplified by me reading Life is Rich, How to Create Lasting Wealth, and then going out and acquiring over $1 million in assets by applying what I read. That's not normal. That's not something that most people can do. And
Especially not in 90 days.
Yeah. So I thank God
beautiful.
for being able to know that that's something that is, that He's given to me, to be able to know about myself and to have the confidence and the heart to teach other people and to bring people into that fold.
I love it, brother. Well, I have to tell you, I'm thankful that our paths reconnected. Learned plenty from you already. In fact, we were having a conversation not too long ago, and I realized you checked me on one of my limiting beliefs, and I was like, "What am I talking about?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's right." So I love having brothers who, will literally help you look at yourself. I call that mirroring. Help you look at yourself so you can see. Wait a minute, you got a speck in your hair there, bro. you
Well, that
you may
feeds me
not see
too.
it.
I've learned from you as well. The dialogue is so energizing,
Mm,
to be able to just connect and to be able to fully listen and then take in and process what is being communicated. And that's all it is that I'm seeking in this
yeah,
season of life, man, is to bring, we're each members of the body bring what God has given to us, and we each have a unique assignment. And all I'm looking to do is to bring all those talents together to say, okay, we all have our talents and gifts. Let's work in agreement for the purpose that God has for us.
bingo. And the funny thing is, I think a lot of people get so caught up in like a lot of my listeners may hear your language, and it may be something that triggers them because of their past, religion, whatever. But what I would encourage people to do is really connect with the heart and listen to that power, because you can sense and hear what's real. It doesn't matter the languaging. It's the sincerity, the commitment, the love, and the heart that matters. And that stuff transcends a lot of the little picky things we get all caught up in. It's like that. I think that becomes a big stumbling block for a lot of people for no reason. And then they end up missing a blessing because of that kind of junk. So I'm gonna invite you, if you're one of those listeners who have that kind of junk, drop your junk and go ahead and get his book, check it out, and understand that there's something greater at work when it comes to what we need, especially if you've got goals that are about you living your best health, wealth, happiness. If that's something you're aligned with, what he's offering you aligns with that and will help you do that and create. Tell them about the areas that you talked about. I like the way you phrased them. It included financial, relationship. What are those areas you talked about?
Spiritual, mental, emotional, relational, physical, and financial. I do an exercise when I'm speaking where I'll have people to draw a triangle on their paper, and then I list out those 6 components, and I'd say, now let's build your optimal house. Starting from the bottom up, let's build your optimum structure using those words: spiritual, mental, emotional, relational, physical, financial, and put them in the order in accordance to what you perceive to be your optimal structure. And just that one single exercise, I can immediately diagnose and pull out where a person is actually struggling because of where they placed their order. And so that's the reason why that's so key, is that the core is spiritual, mental, emotional, relational. If you got the core in place, you can see it manifested in physical and financial. And that's the message. And that's what I walk people through to optimize living in fullness every day.
That's what love what you just said. Couldn't agree more. That's really what alignment is about. That whole thing, starting with the spiritual, starting with that relationship, and moving on to all those areas. I love it, my brother. I know we're gonna have many more good conversations together. I appreciate you. Appreciate what you're doing in the world, and I know there's a lot of people who can benefit, including myself. And loving what we're doing together already. Looking forward to seeing other people being inspired by your story, being inspired by your example, and stepping up to the plate. So we're going to keep it going, my brother. Well, thank you, Nate, for your time. And everybody listening, just want to say, if you're not already taking that time to cultivate what I like to call a practice, a daily practice, practice from moment to moment, where you're having that ability to tune in and hear and listen what's yours to do, what's yours to know, cultivating that beautiful relationship that goes beyond ideology. If you're not doing that yet, listen to some more of the podcasts, go to johnstringerinc.com, download some of the stuff on there, and definitely tune into my brother Nate Scott's lifeisrich.com, lifeisrichglobal.com, excuse me, /book. Get that book, get what you can out of it, and we will see you soon. Check out the poll. Let us know what you liked as well. Much love, everybody. See you next time. Thank you again, Nate.
Thank you.